Hey guys, welcome to the first episode of Salted Earth, the first real official episode. I've put out some videos, a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, but this is the first real video where we'll get into some stuff. It's the weekend, so we've had a couple days to digest the two different, I guess you could call them debates, that happened this week. Not being a MAGA guy, I will give Donald Trump credit on one thing. He has required the Democrat Party, the embracers of the left, to fully take their masks off. There's no more hiding. The crazy's out of the box, we'll put it that way. So, from what we gathered this week, what we can look forward to if parties switch the White House in 2020 is a bunch of free stuff that will come in the form of all your money coming out of your taxes. Every single one of them admitted that taxes will be going up. So it's like when you already have a hamburger and somebody comes up and they're like, "We have a better hamburger, and it's free." And you're like, "Yeah, but I got this one." And they're like, "No, we're replacing this with our hamburger because it's better. It's also free, but we're going to need $20. Like, how would you feel about that? That's the way you need to approach all these programs that the Democrats are proposing. It's the same way as we're going to take away your health insurance, the hamburger mentioned earlier, and replace it with our better hamburger. It's not. It's made of mostly ground up mealworms and then flavored like beef. You know, um, and then you're going to owe us $20, and you're like, "But I don't want to give you the $20." And they're like, "Well, then we'll just send our armed employees to your house, and we'll take the $20 from you. Enjoy your new hamburger you didn't want." And so that's their economic platform. Once again, the sky's falling with climate change, so why should we care? Because if we follow their rhetoric, we're all dead in a decade anyway. So I mean, party on, because we're all going to die, right? And my favorite one though is the reproductive rights or abortion on demand for trans women, which is basically a dude. And I'm sorry, my dude, pregnancy ain't gonna happen for you. Okay, it's just not. It's just not. Junior was a movie from 20 years ago or more. It's not a real thing. I'm sorry, but trans woman just means dude, and dudes can't get pregnant, right? So that was a whole wasted segment for that dude on the debate where he could have been talking about something that actually mattered, but instead he wanted to try to placate the ma'am community and say something really stupid. So that's where we're at. That was the first one. Oh, and don't forget the basically now if you're a Democrat running for office and you find a question uncomfortable, you literally can just switch to "Donde está las biblioteca" for an answer, and then you'll get like some crazy awesome side eye from Spartacus, who's looking at you like, "Bruh," and then he'll turn around and he'll do it in his next answer. So basically, the Democratic debates are going to turn into freshman year Spanish with a bunch of people butchering a language to try to placate viewers who are laughing hysterically. Um, we learned that Kamala Harris is a time traveler because she went on this very emotional, pithy rant against Joe Biden, having to do with segregation and herself being the little girl on the bus during segregation. But if she was in that era, and then when she got to college, she was listening to Biggie and Tupac, which would have made it the 90s. So it took her 20 years to get through grade school. Is she really qualified to do anything if it took that long to get out of grade school? I mean, if she's listening to these hip hop artists in college when she's supposedly smoking weed and she supposedly did inhale to be cool with the kids, while at the same time having an entire career's legacy of locking up the people she described herself as being in that pandery ass answer to that one interview. Um, you know, so she's like a big old narc, but apparently she was doobieing it up in college, getting ready to lock everybody else up who was doobieing it up in college. Listening to artists who weren't out yet, depending on the year that she was in college. But, she was also able to steal Condoleezza Rice's actual heritage story and use it as her own to try to swipe at an old man who was falling asleep at the podium. Um, on top of that, speaking of, you know, stealing people's stories, um, the woman who came out against Trump for this rape thing actually stole the plot from a Law and Order SVU episode all the way down to the department store it took place in, to what was being bought on the show when the rape took place and where it took place, right? So Law and Order SVU had this episode a long, long time ago where a woman was shopping in Bergdorf and was lingerie shopping, and it happened in a fitting room. Sound familiar? But it also explains her awesome interviews that she gave. The best of which was to Anderson Cooper, who literally looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole when she started calling rape sexy and saying that rape fantasies were sexy. While she was being interviewed for claiming rape, but not really rape, because poor women are raped, and she's a well-to-do woman, so it wasn't really rape; it was violence. She called it a fight. I don't know. I've never heard of dudes, fighting women with their penises, and instead of calling it rape after you describe it as a rape. But we're getting off the point. So that's kind of what this week's been comprised of. On top of the, typical SJW shrilling and it still being G Mafia month and the Alphabet Soup, people month, and their wonderful tolerance that they just defecate all over everybody else. So June's pretty much been a home run politically, and then you've got all the stuff going on with big tech having to testify in Congress. And I'm sorry, but can we not call the people in Silicon Valley geniuses? Because when you watch them testify, they don't know anything, or they claim to not know anything, and they just come off really stupid, which is almost scarier when you realize how much power these tech companies wield. If they were at least honest and gave smart answers to what their actual agenda was, and the way they think, and that the censorship was real, and they gave like at least honest answers on why they think they're justified in doing it, it wouldn't be as frightening as seeing a bunch of low-level office people who don't know their ass from a hole in the ground just saying I don't know, or I'll take that back to my team, over and over again. It's really scary when these companies wield that much power, but apparently the people wielding that much power can barely make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on their own. You know what I mean? Like, that's a frightening thought. That much power in the hands of idiots reminds me of everything in our government right now, right? That much power in the hand of a bunch of idiots. Regardless of party, don't get your feelings hurt. So, that's where we're at right now. You've got an entire party throwing every registered Democrat in the country into this election to try to beat Donald Trump. And the only answers they can give are, Christmas for everything, free everything, except when we tax you. And then you've got Liawatha, Pocahontas out there from the Harvard Law School, where she falsely got hired under pretenses of her ethnicity, and then when called on it and proven wrong, threw her own parents under the bus. That's just what my parents always told me. They told me I had high cheekbones and that, we were Injuns. And, here's me drinking a beer in the kitchen with my husband who looks like he would just love to be struck by lightning because he's married to me. And I forgot to take down my little black Sambo cookie jar up on the shelf back there because the Democrats were never racist. What are you talking about, right? It's not like they invented the KKK, segregation, the 3/5 clause, Jim Crow laws. I can go on, seeing as how they're the side who fought for slavery. But the Democrats, they love those people. But they love those people until they're no longer useful, right? So if you notice, there's no real talk in these debates about black communities or improving, black lives in this country anymore, which was a big talking point when Obama was running. It was a big talking point against Trump, and now it's a dead issue because they have a new one. They have the MAMs. The trans community seems to be one of the new darlings, and then this whole illegal alien problem. So, Black people have been pushed to the back of the bus again by Democrats, priority wise. Uh, and they really don't matter anymore. And now it's all illegal immigrants and the ma'ams. Ma'ams should get an abortion even though they don't have a uterus and can't get pregnant. But it's still good to pay them lip service because God knows they're constantly whining about something. So maybe this will make them be quiet for a few minutes and get me some votes. Um, you know, my view on that whole thing really started with Bruce Jenner running over somebody with his car and getting away with it. And to garner the sympathy for him getting away with actually killing somebody was he became Caitlyn, and the entire world had to be Brett Favre with that weird clap thing. And we've been having a weird clap for these people ever since. It's not a mental disorder. It's not. It's not. I mean, it really is, but it's not. And they're all stunning and brave when they threaten to hit people constantly in public because they're still men, and men are violent usually when they have to, get confronted with something. And being confronted by biology and facts seems to make them mad, like when they threaten to hurt Ben Shapiro or when they threaten to burn down a GameStop. Because their community is all about tolerance, love, and inclusiveness, right? So that's what's being pushed by the Democrat platform. Bye bye, black people. Bye bye, working class industrial. All the people we talk about, those poor coal miners we love to bring up every election cycle. None of that's being talked about this time. Now it's all about, Dora the Explorer and, the mams. And what's funny is all this concern, right? And this is what pisses me off because intellectual dishonesty is ridiculous, right? It's just ridiculous. If you give up your integrity, you have nothing left to stand on. You've given up your character, your conviction, and your integrity. You have nothing left. Yet you're still going to placate, moralize, and preach to people constantly about what they need to believe in and what they need to agree with and what they see as a human rights violation when it's really not. So here's the thing, right? So they're calling for the open borders. They want to decriminalize, illegally crossing and everything else. They want to make it a non-crime. You're right. So here's the thing. They recently did DNA testing, and 1/3 of all children coming over the border illegally are not with their parents, right? So for years, people actually working down there, people in the border patrol, people who run these facilities that take these detainees in, they all said that there's this huge child trafficking thing that's happening, right? Because these cartels and the coyotes, they pay these families and the families give them one of their children because if you're caught with a child on this side, things are more lenient. You're usually allowed to stay because then they give you a court date with an immigration court and then you get to disappear into the interior of this country and take that child who's not yours, God knows where, right? But we all know that it's human trafficking at the same time. Just nobody wants to say it because then the Democrat platform on illegal immigration falls apart because you can't say that you're for child trafficking publicly because nobody's going to vote for you because that makes you a monster. But here's the thing, all their positions leave them open to being those monsters because they're ignoring what is happening to the children in this migrant crisis. Right? You want to see the crisis? The crisis isn't that they have to stay in these detention centers, right? The crisis isn't this, the crisis isn't that. The crisis is that these children are either dying en route, right? They're dying trying to get here against their will, because a child that age does not get to make decisions for itself, right? So that child did not consciously say, I want to come to America, but I want to travel my ass through a desert and die first, or get here already dehydrated, have them try to save me and die anyway, or drown. No child makes that choice, right? So that choice is being made for them, for the party of choice. This choice is being made for them, and the Democrats are fully supporting that. And at the same time, in order to placate, to try to get a voting bloc, they're ignoring what is happening to these children when they get here, right? The biggest sex trade in this country is not blondes with double D's and good girth, birth and hips. It's children. The number one sex trafficking thing in this country is children. And you have this crisis being ignored for the sake of a voting bloc that is preying on these children. It's just the truth. You look at it, fact after fact after fact, study after study, sting after sting after sting after sting. So when you and your little Democrat buddies talk about how open borders and no sovereignty and no nation and realize that you are placating the child sex trade and you are making excuses for it without having to address it. Because this open borders thing is just going to make it worse. And if you really want to see how much the Democrats give a crap about these children in these detention centers, other than AOC's googly, crazy-eyed ass standing outside of an empty parking lot doing the worst acting since Cameron Diaz in The Mask, right? Standing there, $1,000 watch on the wrist, very expensive white jumpsuit in the middle of the frickin' desert, and then the camera pans over, and what is it? It's some bored-looking cops and some cars in a parking lot. And that's the outrage she just couldn't stand anymore, right? Not only the fact that those pictures are what, a year old and just now surfacing when this... So basically, this photographer took these pictures, and her and this dude held on to him until an appropriate time to release him. The problem is, he didn't use a narrow-angled lens to just catch her, so it's super easy to look at what she's actually looking at, which is a whole lot of nothing, which is what comprises the entire Democrat platform. A whole lot of nothing. Right, so on top of that, this crazy-eyed woman then starts encouraging Wayfair, right? You know, they have those annoying commercials on HGTV, that Wayfair got just what I need. That commercial that makes you want to put a drill into your own frontal lobe after you've heard it like 4 or 5 times. That company stages a walkout, right? And all the Democrats encourage it. All the pro-illegal immigration people encourage it. Do you want to know what they were protesting? When they talk about think of the children, do you want to know what they were protesting? Dude, they were protesting the fact that this company was working with the government to provide beds for children. And one of their employees, I'm sure she's a pleasure to get stuck next to at a party. You know, she goes off on this tear on Twitter about, I can't do this. We're going to walk out because they want to give beds to children, and it's terrible to give beds to children. Because who'll think of the children when you care about the children? You don't give beds to the children when you care about the children. So AOC, the same woman who staged a fake photo op cost her district 25,000 jobs and countless millions of dollars in revenue from Amazon, and then beat her freaking chest about it like the most retarded King Kong ever. About how she ran Amazon out of New York. Blah, 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 blah. She champions this on Twitter. So they staged the walkout. So guess what happened? Guess what happened? All those pictures from the Obama era, by the way, of those children in actual cages sleeping on concrete floors, that's going to continue because of the Democrat platform on this, feeding into hysterical left-wing idiots who just meh, 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 their way through life, getting outraged at whatever they're pointed at. Go be angry at that. Okay, I'm going to be angry at that. Punch a Nazi, I have a sign that's, not really funny because the left can't meme. So that's what happens, and now these kids are sleeping on the floor. So, you have these proposals for all this money, right? You have actual Border Patrol agents. You have the politicians who live in these border states. You have all these people saying, we need more money. We need more infrastructure. We need this. We need that. We need this. We need that. We need this, right? And what's the one party standing in the way of that like this? No, indignantly. No, we don't want to help. Right? The Democrat Party, the same one that keeps telling you they're for the American people, that they actually care about other human beings, that they have your best interest in mind. Do you know what the Democrat Party is when you boil it down? It's that drunk uncle who's been in and out of jail, but everybody wants to be nice, so they don't want to talk about what he went to jail for, aka all the Democrats' past sins with race. So nobody really talks about it, but, he gets really lively at parties because, Uncle Dem drinks a little too much and secretly touches you under the table, but you're too scared to say anything because you just want the family dinner to go along well. That's the Democrat Party right now. It's your drunk uncle with the shady past who likes to touch people under the table. That's what the Democrats are right now. Only sometimes, Uncle Dem shows up in a dress because he's super confused, but everybody's trying to be nice, so nobody wants to say anything. You know what I mean? So that's why there needs to be a lot more salted earth, not just this channel, but people need to wake up and start being intellectually honest. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be a Republican, because I'm not one or the other, because I've stated in a video earlier that both parties are the head and tail of the same snake, and it's been eating itself for 60 years, and the rest of us have been getting screwed by the aftermath of that. But don't get suckered in on this illegal immigrant crisis from the Democrat point of view. Don't get suckered in, because they could give a crap about these children getting sold into sex trafficking. They could give a crap about these detention centers that they call concentration camps, actually getting what they need to provide a good environment for these people while they figure out what to do with them. They're the first ones to railroad any of that stuff, but they're also the first ones to get on TV and cry, and you're usually the first ones to line up and buy it. That's on you. You know what I mean? So I put out a post earlier on Facebook, what some things you guys want me to talk about. And I actually got some good responses. So I'm going to start doing some research and we'll do stuff on that. Like Columbus Day being replaced with Indigenous Peoples Day. Didn't they cover that on South Park and make y'all look stupid who support that anyway? Right? But I'll get into that. One was on, hold on, let me look. I know one was on the gender pay gap, and never mind that it's been disproven. 16 ways till Sunday, and it's not a thing. It's just not. If you look at work patterns, who's willing to invest in hours, who's not. It gets more into if you want to throw statistics at somebody, like women only get 76 cents on the dollar, which already has been fundamentally disproven. But if you want to say that men get promoted faster, you have to look at why that is, and it has nothing to do with actual discrimination based on sex, but discrimination based on effort and amount of time put into a job. But here's the thing, right? So women won't want to scream discrimination. Let's flip stats, right? Look at how many more women go to college than men. Look at how many more people are home, how many more men are homeless than women. We'll talk about suicide rates. Let's talk about deaths on the job due to taking dangerous jobs. Let's talk about murder rates. Let's talk about military death rates. We can flip it and flip it and flip it and flip it all you want, and you'll realize that even if that 76 cents on the dollar thing was true, women still have it a hell of a lot better and have a better career path than most men do in this country today, and it's been that way for a long time. On top of that, when we talk about the gender pay gap thing, nobody talks about different things that have been done for women that weren't done for men, like the whole women's suffrage thing, right? Like, I have no problem with the fact that women can vote. I'm not saying to take any of this stuff back. I'm just saying learn your own history before you bitch and moan all the time about stuff you know nothing about and say stupid things about how evil men are when you don't realize how good you've had it because of the men in this country. So here we go. In order to vote back in the day in this country, here's the things that were required of you. Here's just a couple off the top of my head, and there were more. Signing up for selective service, right? Men had to have signed up for the draft for selective service. You also had to be part of your local fire brigade, right? You had to carry the heavy buckets. You had to go deal with fires in your town or your city or your neighborhood. You had to be, basically, in order to vote, you had to be an involuntary firefighter. Not a volunteer firefighter, but an involuntary firefighter. Just like you had to be an involuntary soldier. And there were other requirements that were put on men that when women were asking for the vote, they wanted none of. And you know what? They got the right to vote without any of the requirements that every man in this country had to fill. For time out of mind in this country, every man had to fill those requirements in order to vote. So you know what? Back then, there were a lot of men who didn't vote because they were lazy asses and didn't either want to serve in the military and didn't want to be part of the fire brigade. So guess what, Joe? You didn't get to vote. But we amended everything so that women could vote, and we didn't put any of the requirements on them. But please, please, dress up in your stupid red frocks and talk about how persecuted you are. Please. I'm waiting for you to justify that in any rational way. Exactly. So we'll tackle that, the gender pay gap, and I'll get better information on it, so I don't just look like an angry guy talking, but I actually have stats to back it up. And my friend Tim Berthollet, who I grew up with, this kid's known me since middle school, so he knows that I'm a giant dork with a temper problem. What up, Tim? He wanted me to do Elizabeth Warren's Heritage, Pocahontas. I call her Liawatha. So we'll get into that more. I covered it a little bit earlier when I was talking about the debates, with her. I mean, she's whiter than me, right? So basically, on the Democrat platform this time, we have, was it Robert Francis O'Rourke and Elizabeth Warren. So two of the whitest freaking people you'll ever see, but because the Democrats, they crow diversity all the time, technically by nickname and made up heritage, they do have a Native American and a Mexican running for president. Too bad both of them are probably, more Irish, but definitely whiter than my alabaster ass. So, but we'll definitely get into their heritages there. But as it is, it's the weekend. Watch this or don't, or wait till you're angry so you can watch it, and then you can, vicariously get angry with me and burn off some of that tension. But the way it looks right now, the Democrat platform doesn't care about anybody. They just care about voting blocks, and they are obviously willing to lie and bend over backwards and cover up real problems in order to get these voting blocks that they think are more important than everyone else. So you as just a regular American, they could give a crap about you. They haven't cared about you for decades. And I don't care what color you are. What they do is they shine a light on a demographic based on election time, right? And there's plenty of black people you can talk to who say that. They're like, Democrats show up in force during an election. But once that election is over, we're left to our own communities again and don't see them again until it's time for us to vote for them again. There are plenty who say that, right? There are plenty who say that. Well, now they've been deprioritized in order for the alphabet soup community and these illegal immigrants. They don't care about either of these groups. They really don't. But they're a useful tool. So remember, when you're watching something and you hear a Democrat talk, oh, the children, oh, legal immigration, oh, the children, just remember that's the same party that was cheering on a walkout for a company that was supplying beds to these children. This is the same party wanting to incentivize and make it easier for more of this illegal crossing that is participating in the highest concentration of child sex trafficking going on right now. That's what they're supporting by crowing fake support for the process itself. When they are pro illegal immigration, all you need to hear with your real ears, not the ears that listen to the TV or the radio, or your idiot neighbor who never stops talking about how great Democrats are, and you just, sometimes wish there was a propane accident in your neighborhood. But, when they start talking about how much they care about the children, how much they care about families, just remember that they're calling for complete decriminalization of border crossing, and the amount of drugs, the amount of drug money, the amount of weapons, and the amount of children being sold into trafficking that are coming across with these border crossings. That's all I can say. And trust me, once the LGBTCSHWNIJ2 spirit, whatever the heck that means, double plus ungood, when that crowd becomes, not as useful, they'll dump them for the next demographic. So, that was my take on the debates this week, and just how vapid and stupid the Democrat Party is, and how they've been so emboldened that they don't even have to hide the crazy anymore. Um, they just don't. I mean, look at where we're at, right? So, but that's the video for today. And I'll definitely be looking at more comments for things to study. But my guys, you know, who put in comments for things to study, for things to cover. I will do research on those, and we will have dedicated episodes to each one of those things you put up as a comment. So for now, you know, let's just salt the earth on the Democrat Party.